On a cloudy Sunday morning in the bustling town of Ibadan, worshippers gathered for the weekly service. The church was full, voices lifted in praise, when suddenly all singing stopped. At the front of the altar, a frail widow, dressed in a faded blue wrapper, was being dragged by the arm by the pastor himself. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the congregation as he shoved her toward the doors. "Leave this holy place at once," he thundered, leaving her crumpled outside on the dusty steps. Weeks passed in silence until the widow arrived at the police station and revealed something so horrific. The entire community trembled. Her name was Adunni, a soft-spoken woman in her 60s who had been attending the church since her youth. Widowed for nearly 15 years, she scraped by selling roasted maize at the market. Known for her kindness, she often cleaned the church even when no one asked. The pastor, a man called Tund, was celebrated in the town for his fiery sermons and supposed generosity. To most, Adunni was harmless, devoted, and invisible until that unforgettable morning when Tund declared her unworthy to set foot on holy ground. The scene left everyone stunned. Some women in the choir began weeping as Tund accused Adunni of bringing shame and darkness into the church. "You have defiled this altar," he shouted, though he never explained why. Adunni tried to speak, but the pastor raised his hand and she stopped, trembling. With a final shove, he sent her tumbling onto the street while the congregation watched, unsure whether to intervene. From that day she vanished. No one saw her at the market, at the river, or even at her small hut. Whispers spread. Some said she was cursed, others claimed she fled in disgrace. But no one dared challenge the pastor, who continued preaching each Sunday as though nothing had happened. 2 months later, police officers arrived at the church during evening prayer. In their hands was a worn notebook with Pastor Tund's name scrawled inside. Adunni, looking far stronger than she had that morning, walked in behind them. Her voice rang out as she accused the pastor of stealing from widows, forging deeds to their lands, and threatening them into silence. The notebook, she said, had been hidden under the church's pulpit where she had seen him stash it one night. In front of the stunned congregation, officers lifted the pulpit and pulled out a small locked box filled with forged documents and cash. Tund's face turned ashen as the truth spilled out like floodwater. That evening the church stood quiet, the air thick with shame and disbelief. Adunni was embraced by neighbors who once turned their backs on her, and her quiet dignity became the talk of Ibadan. The pastor was led away in handcuffs, his once powerful voice now reduced to faint protests. The church reopened weeks later under new leadership, and Adunni sat in her usual seat, head held high. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths. If you were moved by this, remember to subscribe to Folktales by Nora and share so others can reflect on the strength of the human spirit.